Despain comes home to take care of some business with the family real estate company. The house is found in disarray, and Mark Despain is dead.
She walked in and Mark was laying on the floor in the kitchen in a pool of blood.
The gunshot wound to the face would have been the kill shot, so to speak.
Very graphic, horrific crime scene.
Could it have been a botched burglary? Could it have been a botched robbery?
2 bullet casings are found at the scene, belonging to a .380 caliber pistol. But who pulled the trigger? Jonesboro, Arkansas. Home of Arkansas State University, Jonesboro is known as the city of churches, with more than 70 churches in a city of 70,000. With rice farms to the west and cotton to the east, Jonesboro is an economic hub for the region.
Jonesboro is a fairly large city. It has the small town qualities of you still have mom and pop stores, things of that nature.
It's a nice town to live in, a nice town to raise a family, right dab center in the Bible Belt. It's a town that's experiencing serious growing pains.
Crimes in Jonesboro, Arkansas was just unknown. We didn't have anything. You used to could leave your doors unlocked and have your windows up in the evening with your attic fan on. It was just a very hometown environment, yet big enough that you had everything that you need.
In an affluent suburb of Jonesboro, Mark Despain runs a real estate business.
He was an entrepreneur and he had goals and he was a great family man and loved his children and loved to travel.
He was involved in the real estate business twofold. One, doing appraisal work, for financial institutions, lending agencies, and then also owned real estate, rental property.
Mark was the type of worker that you couldn't buy enough of. He initially had started working with his mom and dad at their appraisal company and felt strongly enough to be able to open up his own business.
His wife, Michelle, helps out while working a day job at the bank.
Michelle and Mark were actually high school sweethearts. Went their separate ways for a while and ended up getting back together.
Mark is 19 and Michelle is 18 when they marry. Michelle has a daughter from a previous relationship and is pregnant with their son when they marry in 1996.
We knew that she was very impoverished growing up. She come from a poor family. She met Mark, they got married and became wealthy, established a real estate business.
Mark and Michelle did buy some properties, and I think, however, they did have help from Jack and Tana, which is Mark's parents. And I think a lot of that is where some of the issues come into play. Maybe their family was giving them some financial help and it wasn't going toward the bills and things like it should. And that became a questionable thing, as where was the money going?
Mark and his father, Jack, have a falling out. But it's an explosive discovery on Jack Despain's cell phone that sends the family into a spiral. Michelle discovers topless photos of her teenage daughter on Jack's phone. The discovery tears the family apart.
There had been accusations from Mark's daughter alleging some inappropriate photographs that Mark's dad had possessed. It caused a rift in the family, with Mark's mother ultimately leaving her husband there for a while.
Jack and Tana did have words and did actually have issues over that, because Tana, again, being the mom and wanting to be supportive of her son, also had her husband to understand and be there for. So I think it was extremely tough on their entire family.
Initially, Tana Despain, who was Jack's wife, left Jack based upon the allegations. Tana wasn't initially cut off, but then they got back together and Mark cut both dad, mom, sister, family off. And to my knowledge, and based upon everything I've received, they had not talked to Mark in 4 or 5 years.
Michelle's father, Carl, does odd jobs, including rent collection for Mark and Michelle's rental business, when the images are discovered on Jack's phone.
Carl Kelly kind of just did odd jobs for Mark and their family, and even maybe Jack at some point. I don't think Carl was the hold down a job type of person. He would work for the apartment complex, do some maintenance and things like that.
I think that Jack held a grudge against Carl and Michelle and those members of the family that they had, in his belief, turned his son against him and his wife and his family. Whereas Carl had a belief that Jack was a child molester.
I know that there was a lot of bad blood between their families.
August 24th, 2011. Mark meets Michelle on her lunch break from her job at the bank. They go to the local taco shop. For dessert, they get frozen yogurt across the street from the taco shop. It's the last time Michelle would see her husband alive. Michelle returns to the bank from lunch at about 1:30 that afternoon. When Mark returns home, he doesn't realize that he is not alone. At about 3 o'clock that afternoon, Michelle receives a phone call from her father, Carl, saying that the gas bills haven't been paid at several homes, and the gas has been turned off. She needs to go home, grab the bills, and pay them. When Michelle returns home, she walks in on a scene straight from a wife's worst nightmare.
She walked in through the garage door into her residence, and the first room you come to is the kitchen, and Mark was laying on the floor in that kitchen in a pool of blood.
Horrified, Michelle hits the panic button on her home alarm and runs outside to call 911.
911, where's your emergency?
My husband, I just came home from work. Somebody just killed my husband.
What happened to your husband, ma'am?
He's dead. I'm not in the kitchen.
Ma'am, I need you to take a deep breath, okay, and tell me what's going on.
I don't know. I just came home from work to get something, and my husband is laying on the kitchen floor.
Police rush to the scene. Could someone still be lurking in the Despain home?
They come in through the garage and find Mark Despain laying on the floor in a pool of blood. There's no pulse. He's deceased. They try to clear the house because they don't know if someone could still be inside the house.
A lot of blood, meaning that he bled out. This guy bled out. After he was shot, he pumped all his blood out of him.
Mark had one gunshot wound to the left underarm area. He also had a gunshot wound to the face. The gunshot wound to the face would have been the kill shot, so to speak.
Very graphic, horrific crime scene.
And when they determine that there is no one inside the house, they look in certain rooms. In the living room, it appears that it has been, searched. There's things that are out of order, things that are thrown around. In the master bedroom, there are drawers open. It would at least appear to be a crime scene. That could it have been a botched burglary, could have been a botched robbery.
Who killed Mark Despain? Was it a botched burglary? His wife Michelle tells police she suspects someone. Closer to home. Jonesboro, Arkansas, high school sweethearts Mark and Michelle Despain run a real estate business together. August 24th, 2011. Michelle Despain is horrified to discover her husband Mark on the kitchen floor. She calls 911.
My husband. I just came home from work. Somebody just killed my husband.
What happened to your husband, ma'am?
He's dead.
When police bring Michelle in to take a statement, she retells the gruesome scene she's just witnessed.
I looked over, there was stuff on the floor, and I looked over, and he was laying in the floor. And I couldn't see his face because he was kind of looking this way, but there was blood like all behind his back, running all the way back behind him. And I screamed his name, and I went over there and I climbed under his leg and I screamed his name again, and he didn't move at all. And then I got scared because there was stuff in the floor. I thought somebody might still be in the house.
Detectives find 2 shell casings near Mark's body that correspond to the 2 bullet wounds. The imprint on the shell casing clearly indicates that a .380 caliber automatic round was used.
The gun that was used was a semi-automatic, very common, very readily available. I believe it was a .380 caliber, smaller, compact type of gun.
.380 caliber pistols are commonly used as concealed carry weapons. They fit under a waistband and can be easily hidden. Detectives are now looking for a .380 pistol as the murder weapon. They search the house to see if the weapon may have come from inside the Despain home. As more law enforcement arrives, they canvass the neighborhood and investigate whether this was a burglary. Police find a window screen removed, but it doesn't look pried open.
When you went into the master bedroom, there were dresser drawers that had been pulled out, magazines that had been taken out and kind of fanned where they would be seen. In the closet, I think there was a armoire that had been knocked over, a large amount of high-dollar electronic equipment, televisions, computers, things of that nature that weren't disturbed.
Detectives find a hunting rifle left behind as well.
We weren't finding any signs of forced entry. Nothing appeared to be left unlocked, things of that nature.
Outside the home, Carl Kelly confronts Jack Despain, and the family feud reaches a boiling point.
Jack Despain somehow receives notification that it's occurred, and he comes out there and there's a confrontation, at least with those 2 yelling at each other at the scene.
Police bring everyone in for questioning, including Mark's estranged father, Jack Despain.
There were lots of pointing of fingers. Of course, Michelle's family was pointing their fingers toward Jack. Jack obviously was trying to grieve as a father and trying to deal with having to kind of fight for his own life, as far as he just lost his son.
It doesn't take long for investigators to believe that Jack is legitimately upset about his son's murder.
Jack Despain was very distraught during his interview.
I mean, you see it on TV and you read about it, and you never think about being in your family.
Meanwhile, neighbors of the Despains tell police they see a blue Mercedes in the neighborhood they've never seen before.
The nature of the neighborhood isn't one that you would just be driving through. I mean, if you were going there, you were either going there as a destination or you were lost. Or you were there to do something, illegal. Those things stood out to people, and they noticed this older blue Mercedes vehicle that had driven through the neighborhood slowly.
Witnesses tell police they remember seeing a man in a green striped polo shirt walking through the neighborhood that day.
They lived in an area that if there was a vehicle out of place or someone was there that shouldn't belong, that we've got the type of community in Jonesboro that we recognize these things. And I think that they were seen, there were cars there seen, and actually there was reports that there was a man seen there, basically stalking out the place.
Nothing is adding up for investigators. They suspect it's a staged burglary. Yet, they have eyewitness accounts of a strange car and a possible burglar. The motive for their prime suspect, Jack Despain, isn't holding up. On August 28th, family, friends, and police attend Mark Despain's funeral.
It just brings out the realization that your friend is gone. Someone that was so loved and so cherished by so many could just be gone.
Police notice something peculiar. Mark's family has not been invited.
There definitely was a grudge there, and you could tell that even with the death, that grudge wasn't going away.
In fact, Michelle forces Mark's parents to hold a separate funeral service entirely after the visitation.
At the visitation, you could see just the behavior of Michelle and Carl. It was just again odd behavior.
Is there more to the family feud for police to uncover? Does the bad blood put someone familiar to Mark behind the murder weapon? Jonesboro, Arkansas. Law enforcement tries to nail down who has killed real estate entrepreneur and father of three, Mark Despain. After nude photos are found on Jack Despain's phone of Mark and Michelle's teenage daughter, a feud engulfs the family. Police suspect the house has been made to look as though it was burglarized, but they can't find any sign of forced entry.
During the investigation, we saw there at the crime scene a lot of unpaid bills, late notices, things of that nature laying around.
Investigators explore the possibility of financial motivations leading to Mark's murder. They start with Jack Despain, but don't get very far.
I believe that early on that Jack had an alibi, that they checked out, that he was either, on a roof or working on a roof or someplace. And again, during this period of time when they're looking hard at him, inroads are made when they bring in Johnny Hubbard and Terrence Barker.
A tip from a confidential informant leads police to two new suspects in the case.
There was a tip. There was a gentleman by the name of Quelo that had been bragging, talking about he had killed someone for money.
And they're saying, hey, watch the news tonight. You'll see what I was involved in.
We were able to identify Quelo as being Terrence Barker through records that we had on file.
Police search the Barker's residence and find clothing that matches the description of the man eyewitnesses saw in the neighborhood. Forensic tests are conducted on the clothing that detects the presence of hemoglobin, even if the clothing has been washed. It detects hemoglobin on two different items belonging to Terrence Barker. A routine traffic stop lands Terrence in the county jail for unrelated offenses. Police question him in the murder of Mark Despain, but he denies everything.
I supposed to be talking to dude, you talking about Johnny Hubbard or whatever, or being in the car, or went up to some other place or whatever that you was talking about to get in the vehicle with the other dude or whatever.
Yes, sir, at the church parking lot.
Over half the people, I don't even know that you even talking about, I don't even know them. Or I know of Johnny. As far as like killing anybody or whatever, like you're saying, I did not.
When Johnny Hubbard is brought in for questioning, he tells police that he's the one who hired Terrence Barker to shoot Mark Despain. Barker is interrogated a second time the next day. This time, he's presented with all of the evidence they've got that points to him as the triggerman. And he knows that police are talking to Johnny Hubbard.
Coelho gives up the job, saying that he did it for $7,000 to $10,000. He looked as a point for easy money, so that's why he did it.
You know what I'm saying? It was, like I said, it either was like 7 or 10 stacks. But see, I'm kind of figuring, well, if they wanted to do a kill, and they would just wait on the insurance money, how much would the insurance money probably worth? But they was probably not getting paid in order to even come up with the scheme.
Police connect phone calls made from Carl Kelly's phone to the phones of Terrence Barker and Johnny Hubbard. Both live close to each other. Johnny Hubbard is a tenant of Mark and Michelle Despain.
What appears happens is that Carl Kelly makes contact with Johnny Hubbard, who's a tenant and one of the people that he would be collecting money from, and knows that Johnny Hubbard has a past criminal history, drug dealing, other things of that nature. And it leads to, at some point in time, a discussion. Do you know anybody that could perform a job for me? You know, anybody that would, could go kill somebody?
Carl Kelly threatens Johnny Hubbard with eviction if he doesn't help with this murder plot. With mounting evidence and the testimony of Johnny Hubbard and Terrence Barker, police believe Carl Kelly is the one who offers to pay Terrence Barker to murder Mark Despain and make it look like a botched robbery.
And there's a belief that he uses Mark's own gun to shoot him.
What kind of gun is it?
Was it 380?
Police are confident the 380 shell casings found at the scene belong to a weapon Carl Kelly provides to Terrence Barker.
The gun, I guess, was in the cabinet thing or whatever, because he went to the cabinet thing and was reaching, messing with the stuff or whatever, and came out with it.
Carl Kelly knows Mark Despain owns the pistol because Carl arranges for him to own it.
Earlier, Mike Kelly, which would be Carl Kelly's brother, has a gun just like Carl. They both bought them at the same time at a local gun shop. Al's Lock and Keys, that he had a firearms dealership and sold them. Supposedly when Mark was talking to Carl and he said he really liked that gun, he calls up his brother and says, hey, do you want to get rid of your gun? You know, I've got a buyer for it, or hey, Mark would like to get it.
Sometimes it's coming through. I appreciate you coming up here and everything. Under circumstances, I know it's... You didn't find the gun? Gun's not there. I've got one just like it. Me and Mike bought one at the same time. He sold his to Mark. Right. And that's why Mark couldn't never figure out how to break it down to clean it. Like I told. He's always having to show him. Right. Yeah. My fingerprints on the gun.
I would describe this as a very cold-blooded homicide.
When detectives interview Carl Kelly, he immediately describes the rift between Father Jack and son Mark.
Jack Despain told Mark, he said, I will ruin you and your family. He said, for y'all accusing me of this. He said, I will see you right. I've heard him say that. Families can be, if I was gonna point a finger at anybody, if that's what you're asking, I'd point at Jack Despain.
I don't believe Carl was a nice guy, but I believe that Carl believed that he was going to walk away with this deal. Basically, he was looking out for Carl. Carl was going to receive some money out of this, possibly some steady income.
That steady income would come from life insurance policies covering Mark, with Michelle Despain as the lone beneficiary.
There were 2 life insurance policies, and she was the beneficiary on both. There were 2 separate policies in the amount of $500,000.
Terrence Barker tells police it was Carl Kelly who offered to pay him between $7,000 and $10,000 to kill Mark.
Besides the fact that him, I guess, getting the job done or whatever, I guess the girl wanted the job done.
Investigators now need to take a cold, hard look at the person who benefits most from Mark's murder, his wife, Michelle. To detectives, the body language and reactions of Michelle Despain don't seem right.
I don't know about you, but I would not be cheerful and smiling during an interview where I just lost my husband.
The detective conducting the interview questions whether Michelle is forcing herself to cry as she accuses Jack Despain of the murder. All of her behavior is noted as unusual.
She didn't show any emotion. She appeared to be trying to make herself cry, so to speak, but there was the emotions shown by her weren't real.
We've said that many times. As long as we all had each other, it didn't matter about the other stuff.
Yes, ma'am, that's
It didn't
exactly
matter
right.
if his dad got mad because we let that property go. Because we've tried to sell the property too, and his dad won't sell it.
Detectives believe Mark and Michelle's marriage is not a happy one.
Once we learned of the affair that Michelle was having, we learned that there was money coming out, Michelle paying for different bills, buying food, things of that nature for her boyfriend.
There were speculations about the affair, and so I personally have no doubt that he was aware of the affair, and maybe not necessarily going down the side of divorce at the moment, but I think at some point it was in his head to do that.
A deteriorating marriage, financial troubles, and 2 large life insurance policies are plenty of motive for law enforcement to believe Michelle wants Mark dead. But a motive isn't evidence. Detectives need a smoking gun to connect Michelle to the murder-for-hire plot. Two .380 automatic bullets enter Mark Despain's body, one in his side and another between his eyes. The gun may have belonged to Mark himself. Another eyewitness would come forward who claims that Carl Kelly approaches him on 2 separate occasions to shoot Mark between the eyes, including once just a week before Mark is killed. Despite Terrence Barker's testimony saying otherwise, ballistic testing on Mark's forehead confirms that he is shot point blank right between the eyes. Michelle Despain's father, Carl Kelly, puts the gun into the hands of a hired killer, Terrence Barker. Now, investigators need to find out if Carl Kelly is conspiring with Michelle Despain to kill her own husband. They establish a motive and they see suspicious behavior, but those things aren't evidence of Michelle's involvement. Michelle tells police she receives a call from Carl at around 3 o'clock, August 24th, to deal with unpaid gas bills. She says several homes have had the gas cut off, and she has to go home to retrieve bills and pay them. There is indeed a stack of unpaid bills in a bundle on the kitchen floor. But there's a note on the bills. Got extensions. Pay on or before September 3rd, 2011.
She said she had to go home to pick up something, but it was also during the same time that school would have been letting out. So that led me to believe that she needed to hurry up and get home to maybe keep the children from finding him.
Not only did she pry him away for lunch, but in order to give the intruders a couple of more minutes, she also asked him to go get ice cream.
August 31st, 2011. Police tell Michelle Despain they have arrested the suspected triggerman, Terrence Barker, and the man who drove him to the house, Johnny Hubbard. And they inform Michelle that they intend to arrest her father.
My father?
Yes, ma'am. Your father will be arrested for murder. I have all the information, all the evidence I need.
Not Mark's
No,
father.
ma'am. Your father, Carl Kelly, is responsible for setting this up, partly to have your husband killed.
I don't believe that. I had the tenant call me this morning and tell me that. I did not believe it. Thought it was another rumor.
It's not a rumor, Michelle.
There's been rumors already
I
that
know. There's been thousands of rumors out there.
Carl Kelly, not Jack Despain, is charged with capital murder. Police arrest Carl Kelly and retrieve a .380 caliber pistol from his home. They conduct ballistics testing on the gun, but the results come back inconclusive. Police go over the events of the day with Michelle one more time. Meanwhile, they do some more digging into the contents of her phone.
The phone that belonged to Michelle was forensically examined there at the Jonesboro Police Department. It was the text messages that we were seeing as far as the phone records were not in the phone itself, and it appeared that it had been deleted. It was several months down the line that the phone was forwarded to the FBI, and with the help of some newer technology, they were able to recover those text messages.
The day of the murder, it says, it has to be today. Sending a message to her dad that says, can't deal with it any longer, it has to be today. So basically, the dad texts back and says, keep me posted, keep me in the loop as far as your time frame goes.
She was communicating with Carl, giving Carl basically play-by-play details of where she was, where Mark was. He was asking her before that, can you get him to lunch? She's giving play-by-play details to him of when they're leaving the restaurant, details including when he's on his way home.
Police believe Michelle receives a text when the job is done so she can get to the body and discover it before her children get home from school around 3.
It appeared that Michelle wanted out, that she couldn't take it any longer.
Her motive was in this, that she was going to obtain this large amount of money, continue her way of living that she was comfortable with.
They knew what they were going to do. Kill him, and then they were going to get the insurance money so the father and the daughter conspired, and then they get these poor slobs to go do the dirty work for them.
Once the evidence was recovered from Michelle's cell phone, and with all the other investigative findings, we were able to obtain a warrant for her arrest.
9 months after Mark Despain is killed, police arrest Michelle Despain and charge her with capital murder. Police believe they have cracked the case, but the search for justice doesn't end with an arrest. August 24th, 2011. Mark Despain is found murdered by his wife, Michelle. Phone records show Michelle and her father, Carl Kelly, are in constant contact the day of Mark's murder. Finally, Michelle is charged, and police can put together a complete timeline of what happened. With financial problems, a failing marriage, and an affair, law enforcement believes Michelle wants a way out. She enlists the help of her father, Carl Kelly. Carl threatens Johnny Hubbard with eviction unless he procures a hired killer for Carl. Johnny finds Terrence Barker to be the triggerman. On August 24th, Michelle texts Carl saying it has to be today. Carl contacts Hubbard to make the arrangement.
Right before Mark did go home, they had met for lunch, and then we found that Mark and Michelle had went to a local frozen yogurt shop after their lunch.
Meanwhile, Johnny Hubbard drives Terrence Barker to the Despain residence. Waiting for them there is Carl Kelly.
He was there the whole time.
He had met with Carl Kelly. He was supposed to receive a certain amount of money. He was taken to the house by Carl. Carl let him in through the garage. Terrence laid in wait inside the house in a laundry room.
Takes him in the house, shows him that Mark will come in that door, that he usually, as a habit, sets his stuff up on the counter, his wallet, keys, you know, he'll pick up the rent collections or whatever else may be there, mail, something else.
Did he tell you who he was texting?
Did he tell me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Who did he tell you he was texting?
The dude wife. Play by play.
Play by play.
On what they was doing.
Mark had one gunshot wound, I believe, to the left, maybe underarm area. He also had a gunshot wound to the face. The gunshot wound to the face would have been the kill shot, so to speak. Based on the gunshot wounds that he was suffering from, this was an intentional act.
Mark Despain had been executed.
The items that were in disarray did appear as though it was staged to look like some sort of burglary.
Terrence Barker flees the scene on foot. He tosses the gun, which is provided to him by Carl Kelly, into the back of a red truck. In order to make sure her 3 children don't discover Mark's body laying in a pool of blood, Michelle rushes home under the pretense of having to collect unpaid gas bills. Both Carl and Michelle point the finger at Mark's father, Jack, but his alibi is strong and his motive weak. In fact, Jack is cleared of any wrongdoing in the cell phone incident with his granddaughter, which tore the family apart 5 years earlier.
They got school involved, got the county involved, state, and I went in and I took a polygraph test, and I was cleared.
In the end, law enforcement gets the evidence to charge Michelle Despain with capital murder. Johnny Hubbard is charged with hindering apprehension, a charge in Arkansas that is similar to obstruction of justice in other states.
Johnny Hubbard was a facilitator. He was a go-between between Carl Kelly and provided the shooter, Terrence Barker.
Terrence Barker avoids the death penalty and pleads guilty to first-degree murder.
Terrence Barker was the shooter, there's no doubt. And that he waited inside a closet and shot and killed Mark Despain.
Michelle's father, Carl Kelly, who arranges for the murder and gives Terrence Barker the gun that kills Mark, also avoids the death penalty with a guilty plea of first-degree murder. But Michelle, charged with capital murder, which could lead to the death penalty, is offered a plea deal from prosecutors because of a weakness in their case.
The prosecutors had learned of this new case law that had come out, and they knew that if those text messages were to be suppressed and removed from evidence in the proceedings, that would affect the outcome.
Well, they obtained the warrants, but it was our basis that they obtained the warrants improperly because there should have been a new affidavit specifically stating why this phone needs to be searched again. You know, what has led them to need this additional search. They got an initial search warrant. They didn't find these things that they were allegedly looking for. And so each time they went into this phone, they needed a new search warrant. That was our argument. And if that argument was made and we prevailed, then they may not have enough evidence to go forward. She was charged with capital murder. She ended up pleading to 3 counts of hindering apprehension.
Hindering apprehension, the same charge that Johnny Hubbard pleads guilty to. However, Michelle pleads guilty to 3 counts of it. Each charge comes with a 10-year sentence. But with good behavior, Michelle Despain can be free in as little as 5 years.
In the eyes of the law, justice was served, but what about the eyes of the family?
Our blood starts boiling when we talk about the plea agreement because we basically feel that she got away with murder.
At the end of the day, she was arrested, and we did our job as law enforcement, and the prosecutors, they did their job the best that they could. Although she wasn't found guilty of murder, she didn't plead guilty to murder based on everything that we had at that time and what we were learning. That was a better outcome than her not ever being found guilty of anything.